Hello, welcome back to the podcast, everybody. It's nice to have you back here. Today, we have a great topic for those who would love to retire early, and we're talking like 5 to 10 years earlier, and double their income pretty quickly. To help us out with this topic, we have the wonderful Kristen Wonch, who she went from $100,000 in debt to global money coach. So she's an ex-trader and she demystifies wealth for women. I feel like as women, a lot of us can have like this poor money mindset and concept of what wealth really is and how we can do that for ourselves. So I'm so excited to be able to be talking with Kristen and have her share her wisdom. She is a wizard with numbers and was one of a handful of women to land a highly coveted role structuring multi-million-dollar deals as a commodities trader, attaining in a few months what takes most people nearly a decade. So we can see that she is epic at what she does. And we're so lucky to have her here with us today. Her money mastery method is the world's first to teach women to master the art of earning efficiently, spending smart, and investing intentionally, while rewiring their subconscious money beliefs from the ground up. She's worked with hundreds of entrepreneurs and has coached women across 8 countries to create financial freedom with an approach to finance so simple a grade 4 can do it. So that's what I want to hear. I want to hear that anyone can do this. Her podcast, The Wealth Equation, reveals untold stories from 6, 7, and 8-figure female entrepreneurs and is top 100 ranked in 17 countries. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Harmony. It's really good to be here.
It is so nice to have you all the way from Costa Rica, as we were speaking just before I hit record. Like, it is one of my go-to places. I really need to get there. And I guess you've been able to create that freedom to live in a beautiful place like Costa Rica through your money mastery method. So we will get into that. But before we get started, I want to hit you with my rapid inspiration questions, just so that our audience gets to know you a little bit better. What would you say is one of the most unconventional things on your bucket list?
Oh my goodness. Probably one of the most unconventional things is I would love to spend, a month or 2 in some of the islands in Indonesia, just living, like doing nothing but surfing all day, every day, living on the.
Nice.
I would say
So,
yeah.
Amazing. So you surf, obviously. Do you surf in Costa Rica?
I do surf here. Yeah. I don't think I could live in a place that you couldn't surf anymore. So it's one of my go-tos.
Brilliant. And if there was a song about your life, what would it be?
Oh my goodness. An actual song?
An actual song. Oh, you can make one up.
Oh my goodness. This is hard. I'm not going to be able to come up with one on the spot. Sorry. I know that's a lame answer, but
that's fine. What about your favorite food?
My favorite food, chocolate, for sure.
Yeah, one of mine too.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get on to some easier questions then. So from moving across the world 3 times and starting over, it's quite the journey. So how did these experiences shape your perspective on money and success? And tell me about these 3 global moves.
Yeah, I think I've always been the kind of person that tends to question everything. And so, I think what COVID gave a lot of us was the ability to question all the things about our life that we weren't questioning before, just the status quo, where we live, what we do, how we work, are we in the office, are we out of office? And so those 3 moves for me were really a chance to just completely question, whether my life was really working. And so one of the moves that I made was to New Zealand from Calgary. And it was, I left my corporate trading career and I was living this life that was deeply out of alignment, although I wasn't admitting it to myself. Right. And so the move for me to New Zealand, I knew 2 people. I knew 2 people I, ventured into the world of entrepreneurship. That was the very first time. And I started really connecting to other people that were just really like-minded and were, values aligned, and really living my life and leading my life in a way that was more in alignment. Like I started deepening my spiritual practice, which I never was before. I was just drinking my face off on the weekends, trying to make myself feel happier. And so I think that, and same with Costa Rica, I left New Zealand in the middle of COVID, and I ended up in Costa Rica. It wasn't a straight line, and it wasn't like, oh, now I'm moving to Costa Rica and that's going to be the thing. And I found this beautiful place. It was just a chance for me to get deeper and deeper into alignment. And, some of it to go back to, what would be on my bucket list. One of the big things is, a place that I can surf every day, that I'm surrounded by incredible, like game-changing, impact-driven humans, like that are operating at a very high level in the world, and a very chill, tranquilo vibe, like where health and wellness is really important, and people do yoga every day, and there's organic food everywhere. And so those three things for me are like make where I live right now, which is like Nosara, which is a tiny little surf town that most people have never heard of. It's like a life that just feels so, so fulfilling. And so I think that those big moves, it can be hard sometimes to, when you're just doing what you've always done and you're making like small incremental shifts. And, I know one of the things we're here to talk about is, doubling your income faster. Well, there's a big difference between the move you make that doubles your income and the move you make that grows your income by 5%. And for me, those moves across the world were a chance for me to not just create like a 2x, 5x, 10x in income, but a chance for me to create a 10x life, just more deeply aligned. And I think that when you give yourself the opportunity to create from a blank slate, you really are able to make big, quantum leaps.
Absolutely. And I think that also goes to speak on the concept of wealth. You said 10x your life. We often think as wealth just in monetary terms, but when we think about the wealth of our life, like being able to have that experience and live the life that you're living in Costa Rica, like that just sounds like a dream. And I feel that is, there's a broader, bigger concept of wealth that you are creating for yourself. Had you been on a holiday to Costa Rica first, or were you like, this is where I'm going, this is the 10x life I want, and here we are?
Yeah. So I think that, and I don't know how spiritual your listeners are, probably at least a little bit, but I think that, for me, interestingly enough, when I left my corporate career in trading, that was the first time I came to Central America. And so I landed in Nicaragua. I spent time in Costa Rica and Panama as well. And then in a very full circle moment, I ended up back here, 7 or 8 years later when I left New Zealand. And it wasn't a straight line. I moved back to Canada, and I planned to move to Bali, and Bali never really opened their borders. And everything was a bit complicated getting in there. And Costa Rica, I just felt this calling, and my whole life happened to be in a suitcase. And so it was very, and my work is all online, and it was very easy for me to just come here. And it wasn't like, this is where I'm moving, this is where I'm going to be forever, and this is permanent. It was just like, okay, this feels good right now. And this is, the opportunity to take another step and explore the next thing without having to make it mean that it's like this permanent thing, that I'm, married to this country. And so I think just giving yourself the opportunity to just, lean into those things until you find more and more clarity, right? Like action does create clarity often. And sometimes people fear the unknown in a way that they're like, well, what is it going to be? People often message me, when I first arrived, they're like, how did you get there? Because it was the middle of the pandemic. I was like, I literally got in a plane. Like, it wasn't that hard. My flight was canceled a couple of times, and, I had to navigate some weird things around that. But like, it literally wasn't that hard. And I think a lot of people, they want big life shifts, or they want things, that, the 2 months, a year to go surf in Bali, or they want to, take time off to spend with their kids, or they want to build a business that, serves people at a really high level, doing the thing they're passionate about, but they just don't believe that that's possible. And they make it more complicated than it needs to be. And often when you allow yourself to lean into the possibility of how it could be possible, right? Like maybe it's easier than you think, things just unfold, not just through, magic and fairies in the realm, but like things unfold because you create them, because you just solve the next problem that needs to be solved. When my flight got canceled the first time I was coming here, I just booked another flight, right? Like it took me a little bit longer to get here, but it just wasn't that hard. And so I think people, give yourself permission to really lean into the things you want and trust yourself that you can solve the problems that need to be solved along the way.
Totally. I think people are often afraid to dream big because they're afraid of stepping into stepping into their higher self and having this life, because we can become so comfortable where we're at, even though we know it's not exactly what we want, but it's so easy for us just to be in that sort of same day in, day out, So take us back to when you were $100,000 in debt. How did that happen? And how did you transition out of that debt to a global money coach?
Yeah. So, the part of my story, and this is, I don't know if anyone studies human design, but in human design, I'm a generator. I think I'm a 3-5 generator. And like we learn through trial and error. And so one of the things that has really marked my journey has been making a lot of mistakes. And so making a lot of mistakes and also having to learn things the really hard way. And so, one of the things that happened for me is when I was in my corporate career, I was making great money. I was spending all of it. And I was in a lot of debt and I wasn't changing anything about my life. And so when I left the industry, it was one of the reasons was I got laid off, and I could have gone back and gotten another job, but I just knew something wasn't working. And so that sort of forced my hands in a way to really make a different decision. And so when I really started reflecting and questioning all the things that were and were not working about my life, and I really took responsibility for the ways that I was creating all of it, like the pattern of overspending, the pattern of over drinking, the deep unhappiness that I really felt, even though on the surface I felt like I was fulfilled, but I was just living in fight or flight. And so it was really looking inward and taking ownership and responsibility for my life that was the very first thing that allowed that to shift, right? Because so often the patterns we have with money they just continue to be the same patterns that we've had for like 20, 30 years, and nothing changes. And so really taking ownership for the fact that like my beliefs and my mindset is creating all of this, the good and the bad, the things I say I don't want, the things I say I do. And if I really want a different reality, I have the power to create that with my freaking mind and the things that I do as a result of that. And so I started, working with my first coach and really understanding like why, like where was all this coming from and how things could actually shift. And from that place, like I'm just taking radical responsibility and radical ownership and really understanding the ways I was like playing a victim in my own life, the ways I was like keeping myself in this pattern of like crisis, the ways that I was like really not showing up in the way of like the woman that I wanted to be in the world. Naturally things just started to improve. My patterns, my habits changed. And so I, was able to pay off my debt in a few short years. And that's actually like when you put intentionality to your money, it's actually not that hard, right? People can have different strategies around paying off their debt that makes it actually a lot easier than you think, right? But the biggest reason that most people are still in debt is because if they're not looking at it, so they're not paying attention, they don't have an actual plan, and they allow themselves to spend from a place of stress. And so they spend based on feeling, like I was doing. I was shopping like crazy to make myself feel happier instead of just solving the problem of like, you could just do the work to feel happy and not have to spend your whole income trying to fill a void that's never going to be filled. And so I think that was the first thing. And then, when I started doing, I built a co-working space in New Zealand, and I was working with a lot of entrepreneurs. I was doing a lot of business coaching with them for many years, working with women to, strategize their businesses, because that's, one of my zones of genius, and just hearing them say the same thing again and again. I'm not good with numbers. I'm not good with money. It's just not my thing. And realizing that, in the same way that my beliefs, my limiting beliefs, my toxic beliefs were creating, my bad habits with money. Mm-hmm. So many women have these really limiting stories about what they are and are not capable of with money, of, how they should relate to money, of, even the belief of like, if I really earn, multi 6 figures, 7 figures, like I'll become a target or people won't like me, all of these things that hold women back. And so the work that I now do with women is specifically around earning more money and creating wealth with that money and feeling really powerful and capable and confident with numbers. And, I know that you can appreciate this, the work that we do around numbers, it's not about the number. It's about the ability to spend 2 months without, having to work, completely disconnected from technology on a beach in Indonesia, right? It's the freedom that you create to make the choices that you want, to do whatever you want in life. And for everyone that looks different, but the money is just a tool. It's not about the number in the bank. It's about what that number allows you to create for you and your family and your community.
Exactly. And so what would you say were maybe 3 key principles or mindset shifts that were instrumental in your wealth creation journey?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest ones for me has been really dissolving the pattern of I have to work hard for money. So I was addicted to working hard. I chose a very competitive industry, and I was like, what's the hardest thing that I could possibly do? And let me succeed at that so that I can feel love. Right. And so I just notice all the times that comes up for me, and my pattern to or my tendency to try to overwork instead of just literally allowing it to be easy. Right. Like sometimes things will happen so easily in our business. Like we'll have a record month and we feel like we should still be doing more. We don't get credit for that. Right. It's like this weird thing that we get to really unwind. It's like, sometimes it just gets to be easy. Right. It's like, yeah. So that was one of the biggest things for me. And, that is still, some of my constant ongoing work, right? Because it's really easy to fall back into old patterns. And I think when you're trained to believe from society or from parents, that you need to work hard for it, that's, where you default to. One of the other things I would say were, and this is, I think, true for so many women, was not just a fear of success, but actually this resistance to allowing large amounts of money into my life. And so I used to have a pattern of I would make a lot of money and then I would just, and it was the same with the debt, right? I would make a lot of money and then I would just dissolve it. And so what I realized along the way was I didn't come from money. And what I was actually doing was I was keeping myself safe. Like my nervous system didn't feel safe to hold large amounts because I had never seen anyone in my family with a lot of money. It never felt abundant growing up. And, some part of me, and we're never consciously aware of these guys. If you just going deep on this, it's you might believe, of course you have, maybe you have a goal of making $500,000 this year. It's no, I definitely want that. I definitely want that. But part of your, your body and your nervous system might not feel safe at that level, right? It might not, again, some of the things I've seen with clients is I feel like I'm going to be a target if my business earns that much, or, then I'll have the responsibility of paying all these taxes and I don't trust myself with money. Or, people will ask, what if my family members start expecting money from me? And now I have all these people to support. And so it's all of those things, anything that you even subtly believe, our nervous system is designed to keep us safe, right? To keep us alive. And so if there's any of that lingering around, you will just naturally energetically keep it out, right? You'll subtly do things to sabotage your own success. You won't follow up with clients that have gotten back to you. You won't have powerful renewal conversations. You won't show up on social media in a way that compels people to buy from you. So it's these subtle ways. Again, some of it is, energetic, and, I fully believe in the power of manifestation. And some of it is you're actually doing different shit in the world, right? You're doing different things to not allow more money in. And so for me, those have been some of the biggest things, and really just reframing my relationship to money in a way that it's exciting and it feels juicy. And it's this pleasurable, ritual that I have with it, because it's the thing that allows me to live the life I want.
Yeah. I really resonate what you said about the, not growing up financially abundant and then almost feeling like it's just not meant to be your story. So I also grew up with a family who didn't have a lot of money. We had at one stage living in a house. It didn't have any internal walls. Our walls were made out of cupboards. We didn't even have a proper toilet. It was like a camping toilet that we had to use. And I was so embarrassed to bring friends over. Yeah. And mum and dad, they worked and they worked really hard, but we just didn't have the abundance of money. And therefore there was a belief as well in my family that people with money were kind of the snobby assholes, really, which is so far from the truth, because I know so many beautiful, caring, soul-hearted, wonderful people who have a lot of money and do so much good with that money. But it's only now that I'm being exposed to and connecting to those people because I took on that belief. And when I started coming into, financial abundance through the work that I did, I felt really guilty, and I was the same. Like, as soon as money would come in, I would push it out, like just push it out, repel it. And I really had to change my relationship with money, the way that I saw it, the way that I know it to be this really wonderful, beautiful energy exchange between services. And I then started to believe my money was really helping I love supporting other women in business and paying for their services or the things that they create and that they make, and being able to offer, a beautiful life for my children. And not that saying that I didn't have a beautiful life. I had an amazing upbringing, but I didn't get to experience anywhere near what my children get to experience, and that healthy relationship with money, and also to be, humble and things like that. So it has been a real big, huge journey for me, coming from the way that I grew up to where I am now as well. And I can really see the effects of like not feeling worthy. Like, who am I? It's not meant to be my story. Who am I to be wealthy? And what are my family going to think? Are they going to think I'm like the snobby asshole now? And, do I have to hide that part of me? Especially because we were really sort of earthy, soulful people growing up. Like, my parents were pretty hippie, like hippies. And, even in like this natural health and spiritual world, it's like, well, will people look down on me if I am walking around in my Louis Vuitton slides and my Saint Laurent handbag? Like, and I love those things. It's not about materialistic things. It's also about being able to travel freely. It's also being able to build a beautiful home where I can hold events and space for women. But I wouldn't have been able to do that without the income. So I've really had to allow myself to feel worthy of that and not embarrassed, because when we first started, and it's been a tough road to get here. Like, don't get me wrong. It has been a long, long, tough road to get where I'm at. But when I first started to feel a little bit more of financial abundance, I felt really guilty and I would hide it. I didn't want anything that my friends didn't have, because that would make me look like, like I keep saying, like a snobby rich person. And yeah, I really was embarrassed of it, to be honest.
So beautiful. I mean, that's such a beautiful example of like how it's possible to shift your beliefs, right? Like, you don't have to, and I want everyone to really hear that. Like, you don't have to come from money. You don't have to have this identity of like, I've always been wealthy and it's easy for me, right? Like, you can shift your beliefs over time through doing this work. And, we're always filtering for what we believe to be true, right? So you can find examples of really shitty people who are wealthy and really shitty people who are poor, and really beautiful, amazing, generous people who are wealthy, and the same with the like beautiful, amazing, generous people who are also don't have a lot. And so connecting that like money makes you in a certain way is just, it's not a helpful thing to think about. It's like, if you want to have more wealth, looking exactly what you did, Harmony, like looking for evidence of like, who are all the really, wealthy people that are doing good things in the world, like, and creating more evidence for yourself through that lens. Right. And money just makes you more of who you are. Like, it doesn't, thinking about like, I think a lot of people think that, more money means you're less spiritual. It's like, think about like how much more spiritual you can be when you're not stressed about money, or when you don't have to work, 24 hours a day to bring money in. It's like how much more time you have to meditate or give back or be generous, right? Like, it's very strange to me that society has trained us to believe that money makes you less generous or less wealthy, or, like a bad in some way. It's like, that's like, sure, you can choose to believe that if you want, but it's just not helpful. Like, it's not helpful at all.
Absolutely. So how do you see building wealth and how it's connected to our holistic health?
Yeah, I mean, I think just what I said, like, money is a really powerful tool. And so the money enables you to have more freedom and more choice in your life. And that's not just freedom and choice for you, because what most, like, and the stats show this over and over again, like what most women do with their money is be more generous. Like, they have a greater impact, right? And so your like the wealth that you create in your life, and especially if you can get your money growing for you through investments, you have more time freedom too, right? And so thinking about when you have more freedom and choice in your life, you're able to, spend more on, the health and wellness supplements, the expensive yoga classes, the organic goods, right? The ethical, sustainable fashion that's not like fast fashion, right? So it's, or, being able to treat all of your girlfriends for, a dinner, like all of the moms that right, that don't ever get any time for themselves, or being able to take your whole family on a vacation away where that's like the one time of year that they've actually gotten to treat themselves. And so I think the impact of money and wealth on not just your mental health and the environment, you're able to make choices that actually not just feel better for yourself, but it have a ripple, right? Whether it's the earth or your friends or your family, or just like the time you get to be present, right? Like, who's ever had the experience of like, I want to take this week off, but like my mind is just so consumed with my business back home that like I can't even be present and enjoy my family.
True.
Right? So it's like the money gives you freedom of mind and peace.
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest stresses in our modern world is actually not having enough money, enough income to support our well-being in our life. So, if we can start to build that wealth, then it's not a stress that we have to constantly battle. So in saying that, I'm really curious about the concept of the money mastery method and how it helps women retire earlier and double their income.
Yeah. So, and one thing I'll just say I just want to touch on what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that we don't have enough is often not coming from the number in our bank. Like, I watch women, I literally just had a call today with a woman that earns $250,000 a year and feels like it's not enough. And so it's not a reflection. I've been on calls with women that earn millions, right? And still have that story. And so I just want to reflect for everybody. Often when we feel like there's not enough, it's because we have a story that there's not enough there, and we're actually not managing our money well. So it's like it's flying in and out the door. And so I think when people actually get clear on where their money is going and are able to dissolve that story of like there's never enough, a lot tends to shift even without growing your income at all, which is so freeing. So the work that I teach, the money mastery method is really everything that has transformed my life now, and hundreds of clients. And it's really starting with that limiting beliefs, like clearing those money blocks. So what I just mentioned around, if you have a story that there's not enough, we could 10x your income, and that story will still be with you. And so let's get rid of that. Let's clear away all of the, all the things you mentioned, Harmony, around like the identity of wealth, that you didn't come from money. And so it feels like you have these, or it sounds like these stories about what it would mean to become a lot richer, right? And so we got to clear all those away, because what happens if people think they just need a budgeting tool or they just need to learn how to invest, and it's like there's a reason you're not doing it now. It's because of all the things that are happening in your brain. Even when I was trading, right? Like when I was working in corporate, I had all the tools to manage money well. I was like, my job was in finance, but I was managing my money like a monkey. So it's like all of those things are getting in your way of actually doing the things you need to do. And then the next thing we work on is, and those are true for everyone. It doesn't mean that your mind is broken. It's like your limiting beliefs will constantly be there. They'll be the thing that comes up between you and your next level, right? It's like all the times you tell yourself it's not possible, right? It's like I've never earned at that level, right? I've never had a 7-figure income. It's like all the ways that all the stories you're telling yourself there. And then the second piece is earning efficiently. So what is that? And everybody has this, whether you work in corporate, whether you work for yourself, whether you're growing a business, like there is something, I like to look at 10x moves. And so instead of just doing the same thing you've always done, but doing more of it, it's like, if you wanted to 10x your income, you couldn't 10x your hours, right? Like you just don't have enough hours in the day. So something would have to change. So it's like, what are those big, bold moves that you're avoiding? It's like, if you're in corporate, like negotiating with your boss to become the highest paid person in the department. And what do you have to demonstrate to actually get there? Or maybe it's making a jump to a different company, right? Or maybe in your business, it's doubling your rates because you've actually been delivering at that level, but you just have some stories around no one's going to pay me that much. Or, for other business owners, like it can be really just, for example, like following up with all the clients that have inquired with you over the last year that you just don't follow up with effectively. It's like getting on a stage that would allow you to get in front of thousands of people, but you maybe have a story that would be too hard to make that happen. And so it's like, when you think about doubling your income or 10xing your income, it's like those big, bold moves that you're avoiding because they feel terrifying. It's like, it's outside of your comfort zone, and it's outside of what you're honestly strategically doing right now. So it feels uncomfortable, but it's actually the easiest path to growth. And so that the third piece is spending intentionally. So really spending smart. It's like just having clarity on where all your money goes. Most people tend to budget right now from an Excel sheet that doesn't work. They feel guilty. It feels like a big chore. They feel guilty because they overspend, because an Excel sheet doesn't track your spending in real time. So of course you're avoiding it, and all feels terrible. And we're, from the belief, you're doing the whole thing from the belief of, I shouldn't be spending money, which obviously feels terrible. Every dollar you spend feels gross. And so instead of thinking like that, you just have, I teach a backward way to budget, and it really, people fall in love with this tool, but it just gives you, it's like a choose your own adventure. It's like, okay, I have 20 grand coming in this month. Like, I just get to divvy it out to all the places I love, the dinner with my friends, the Prada bag, you choose where your money goes with intention, and it feels good. Some of it goes to your savings, some goes to investing. And then the last piece is investing for the long run. And investing, a lot of people think it's really scary, and it's someday in the future is a day that I can do that. And it's actually like, you could get started with this in 13 minutes. Like, it's way simpler than people believe. And of course, the industry is set up with all this jargon to confuse us, and it's taught by gray-haired men in a stuffy suit, and it feels confusing even for me. And so it's, what I teach is actually a very simple strategy where people can just take their money, take a portion of their money and get it growing for them, and you set it on autopilot, and then that your retirement is covered and your money is growing for you, and it's just working in the background so that you can actually create financial freedom, which is the place that you get to the point where you don't have to work anymore. You choose to, right? So whether, a lot of people don't think about retirement like, I want to, like, it's like this black and white thing. I'm going to go from working 40 hours a week to sitting on a beach, sipping pina coladas, like. But to have the choice of like when and how and if you work is like, that is what financial freedom is. And that can happen a lot more quickly than you think when you're just creating it with intention.
Wonderful. And I like the last point that you brought up about investing. I think it is something that a lot of women sort of shy away from because of the industry that it, like the industry that's tied to it and all of the technical jargon. And I definitely shied away from it for so long. But then it comes to a point, I think, maybe as you get a little bit older and you're like, you know that when you want to retire earlier, the lifestyle you want, you're like, well, I'm going to need an investment. I'm going to need money in the bank. And if I'm someone who has the money sitting in the bank and it's not working for me, and I'm going to just see that and spend that, then I really need a really good investment portfolio. So what I've upped my Vanguard account this year, which has worked, or no, late last year actually, which was amazing because I've already seen like the growth, and it's sort of like a set and forget. And for our Vanguard's like the Australian stock market, and it's awesome because you just monthly deposit money in there, and the money works for you. It just grows in percentage. You don't have to do anything. We've also got investment properties, and we were very lucky. One of our investment properties has like skyrocketed and gone up, and that's fantastic, but we're still outlaying so much money a month to help fund that mortgage as well. And then another one of our properties is not doing so well, and I feel like with the shares and the investing in that way, I don't know. I'd like to say, even though it's high risk, if you leave it there a long time, it's not as risky. And with property, you need like a large amount of sum to start and to get into the market. So what's your sort of view on types of investing and the best way that women can start to grow?
Yeah, I think, thank you for sharing some of your strategies around that, because I don't think there's a one size fits all for everybody, but I do think so, property in certain areas, property can be a really great place to get into, right? And other areas, and it really depends on where you're based, right? Because the growth rate, for example, where I am in Nosara, it's like over the last couple of years, it's gone up by like 40%, which is like a crazy return year over year. But there are lots of places in the world that you never see that kind of growth, right? And so whether property is a good idea for you or not really depends on where you are and what you're doing with it. So, beautiful that that's one option. It also, property requires a big chunky down payment. And so that's something, just to factor in for people. Whereas investing in the, the stock market with shares is easy to get into because you can start with $50, right? And if you do it in a way where you're not putting all your eggs in one basket, you're spreading yourself across a number of different places. And that can be done like the way that it works with some of these investment products is it's like a basket. Like think of it like a fruit basket. Like some companies, like an investment company will package up like a little fruit basket for you. And so instead of buying like an apple and an orange and a banana, you can just buy this one basket and it actually spreads you across a number of different places. And so there's some really easy ways to do that. And what you said around, shares are very risky. They actually, if you're diversified, which is like not putting all your eggs in one basket, shares over the long run, we expect them to go up by 7%, year over year. And so if you're investing for the short term, like we don't know if the market is going to go down by 10% or, up by 20% this year, which it can be riskier in the short term. But if you're investing in the long run, it actually tends, and I can show you all the, the data around this, it tends to trend up. So you can actually trust, and this is what I teach in my work, a predictable, profitable portfolio. You can actually trust that return. And so what you need in order to create that is not watching the market every day. It's not trying to, it's not hoping that you're going to like hit the next crypto, the cryptocurrency and putting all your, all your money there. It's actually just spreading yourself across a number of places for the long run and just trusting that it's growing in the background, which is way easier. It's not as sexy as, talking about your crypto stock picks, but like it actually is predictable and reliable. And so, women that are a little bit apprehensive or, don't even know where to begin around all this, it actually isn't. What's way riskier is keeping your money in cash and not having it grow, because your money loses money every year with inflation, and it's essentially a guaranteed loss.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like a lot of people really resonate when they hear stories of others. So do you have any stories that you're willing to share of your clients that you've worked with who have gone from not a lot to really creating and building wealth throughout their time with you?
Yeah, I have, oh my goodness, so many stories. One client that just was working with me, and she had been working in her business, and for 2 or 3 years, she'd worked with so many different coaches, just really hit a plateau with her business and posting a lot of like incredible content. She's a really, really skilled dietitian and just not seeing the growth she wanted in her business. And after 3 months of us working together, she had 5x what she was making before on a monthly basis. And she just had her 3 best months in business ever and re-signed for another 6 months with me. And what we did with her was not just posting more content on social media. It was like really getting into the hearts and understanding like her customers and her clients. And it's like, why are more people not buying? What do we need to say to them? What do we need to put in front of them? Is this like, what do you need to share that actually compels them to take action? And so she realized that it was actually sharing a lot more testimonials, a lot more of her clients' stories, and particularly a vulnerable piece around the work that she had done with her son and the transformation he had. She ended up getting featured on news outlets, which was a big, a holy shit, like, oh my God, like, can I even make that happen? And she got a lot more sales calls booked in from there. And then something we did on her, on her sales call, she realized she was just having a regular conversation. She was just like, letting things flow. And, she wasn't even creating any structure around it. And as soon as she started putting structure around it and, really leading the conversation of like, I'm here to serve these clients at the highest level and really uncover, like, can I help them? What do they need? Here's my process around it. And, supporting them to make a decision about whether it was the best fit for them. Well, she started closing way more sales calls, and now she's nearly booked out. And so she's on track to, hit her goals even earlier for the year. And so that's, the kind of things that can happen, but for everyone, it looks different. One of my clients, she, ended up getting a promotion. She had a very successful business, like a side business, but, earning over 6 figures. So I can't really call it a side business. And also having, a very successful corporate career. Well, she went from, I think, making 175, maybe 200 a year to 375 just by aligning herself to a promotion. Like, in our time together, she was like, how do I get to the next level? What do I need to demonstrate to my boss? Well, it's actually, instead of working more hours, it's actually going after these specific potential partnerships that are really, really high value. And so instead of like, reaching out to all these different people. She just started going really deep with a handful of them. Well, they were some really high ticket partnerships that brought in a lot of business for her company. And a few months later, she had this promotion. And one of the things we managed in the process was, there was somebody else, like another colleague that was potentially going to take the promotion, or so she thought. And so, just managing her mind around all of that so that she could show up in the most powerful, confident way to just make sure that happened for her. Right. And so it was, these things can happen quite quickly. And for everyone, it looks a little bit different. Or, another client of mine, many clients going from, I'm using a financial advisor and I have no idea what's going on with my investments. My financial advisor makes me feel like an idiot, even though, I'm a multi-six-figure earner and I'm very smart. And going from that to like managing their entire portfolio on their own and tripling the amount they're able to invest every month. And at the same time doing it, I'm thinking about one client doing it the same year. She took literally like 6 international vacations. So like you don't have to, a lot of people think when you start investing, it's like, oh my God, I have to be like I forget the word, but I have to completely restrict myself, right? Like I can't live my life. And it's like, it's actually quite the opposite. You just intentionally are doing all the things. So maybe you're paying off debt, you're saving, and you're investing, and you're spending on the things you want this week, this month, this year, so that you actually get to live a fulfilling life the whole way.
Amazing. I loved everything you've shared. There's been so many takeaways, and I feel for me just reflecting on and summarizing on the things that you said, you come from a very holistic view of wealth generation. And the points that I'm really taking home is to make 10x moves to 10x your money, and to really understand what the life is that you want, and not to be afraid to go after that. Just work out how you can actually do that. And becoming financial literate, so educating yourself around money and investing and saving and what that looks like for you. And then working on your money mindset issues is a really huge thing, because you can't 10x your money goals, or you can't 10x your life if you're not going to 10x your mindset, right? And then the final thing we really spoke about is investing, and how important that is for long-term wealth. Is there any other take homes that maybe I've missed in that little summary there? They're the ones that I've really resonated with and have got out of this episode. But is there another strong message there that you have for women to 10x their income, to retire early, to build wealth?
No, I think you covered it pretty well there. I mean, the one thing I always really like to kind of ground into, or to leave people with, is like, we so often live in what we believe is realistic, or what we believe is possible. And that's the space that we're making decisions from and taking action from. And it's like, what if anything were possible? Right? Like if the entire world could shut down and move all their business online overnight, like what if anything were possible? Like what if it were truly possible? Like the things that you think, you're like, no, I can't even dream about that. What if that were possible? Like, how could that be true? And just like allow yourself to dance in that space of possibility.
And so final question I do have for you is, if there is listeners out here who have, done a lot of the mindset work, have put their heart and soul into their business and really tried to build wealth, and then some unforeseen thing has happened and they've lost everything, like they've gone into debt, bankruptcy, that kind of stuff, where do they start? What is the first thing you suggest that they do to pull themselves out of this financial shithole to financial abundance?
I think, and just to create for everybody, whether you're like at a complete rock bottom, or you're just navigating some difficult challenges in your life, like and this is why the mindset work is so powerful. Like this work has literally changed my life. Like I have been in all those scenarios. Like I've been on the brink of bankruptcy. I have, had my entire corporate career wiped out from under me. I have, dissolved business partnerships, 2 months into building a business where I have a personal guarantee on a 6-figure a year lease. I have been to the places that feel like things are just like at complete despair. And it's I think especially for entrepreneurs, but just people in general, it's like, those things happen. Like you're going to hit a brick wall sometimes. You're going to hit a roadblock, a challenge, and it is your job to solve that problem. And so instead of making it be a big problem and allowing yourself to kind of dissolve in those moments, or tell yourself you're not good enough, or tell yourself it's an insurmountable thing, your ability to show up in those moments and navigate those with ease is what gets you to the other side. And so it's like, it's how you show up with the grit and the resilience and the one belief that I always love to hang on to. And I'm very grateful because my upbringing, because we didn't have a lot, I became a very resourceful human. And so one of the beliefs I picked up very early on was I can figure out anything. Like I can literally solve any problem. And I truly believe that to my core. That's not because I'm a special snowflake. I just decided to believe that. And so you can believe that too. And so when you believe you're the kind of person that can solve any problem, you can navigate, shaky waters, right? You can navigate, a storm. It doesn't have to be a sunny day. And so of course it feels amazing and it feels great when we have the sunny days and we're hitting a record month and the wins, but it's your ability to show up the time you have a failed launch, or when you sign 0 clients for the month, or your biggest client leaves. And this happened to me. Like my biggest client when I ran the co-working space literally moved out in the middle of the night and left me short on a $20,000 contract. And so like these things you cannot control sometimes, right? And so it's your ability to show up in those moments and know that you have your own back and you can figure it out and you keep moving forward. And it's that space that you can keep yourself in of calm clarity that allows you, because when you're in fight or flight, your vision narrows and your problem solving ability shrinks. So you're not good at solving problems that need to be solved. And so if you can keep yourself in this space of like calm surrender and trust, and also like action, you're actually able to solve the problem in a much more rapid way. And we all know as an entrepreneur that you can have your rock bottom moment the same day you have a record win. Like it happens in the same day sometimes. So like, just know that like you might feel like you're at the bottom right now, but like that's going to shift today or this week or next month. Right. And you're not going to have the record win by telling yourself the story of it's never going to work out. So you have to really those are the moments where your muscle is built, right? Those are the moments when it's actually like where your capacity to succeed is actually built from. You don't get the growth from the days that you have the record month. You get the growth from what you did in the moment you didn't.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's true, like we never really know what's around the corner, and it's just we only know what's inside us and how we can really face whatever comes our way. And it's not always easy. It definitely is not always easy, but I think you have a really beautiful outlook on how we can do that. So thank you for sharing. It was such a beautiful way, I think, to wrap up the episode as well. Can you please let all of our listeners know where they can find you, work with you, learn more from you?
Yeah. So you can connect with me. Anyone that, has any questions or wants to share, what landed for them from the episode. I'm Kristen Wonch.xox on Instagram, KristenWonch. And I'll share with you actually a free masterclass that anyone can go and watch called Investor Secrets. So really breaks down for women. You can pop that link into the show notes. Really breaks down for women how to really understand investments so that they can start really building a portfolio and really understand how to grow their net worth to 6 to 7 figures really simply.
Amazing. Thank you so much. That will be a wonderful masterclass for everyone. Yeah, appreciate your time and your wisdom. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you to all of our listeners and those who are tuning in live from the Ayurveda and Women's Health Sisterhood. I hope you all have a wonderful day or evening wherever you are. And if you loved this episode, please rate and share and tag both myself and Kristen in Instagram so that we can share those on for you as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.